What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a gun again that I think is very underutilized in Warzone. It is the AK-74U, and I think it's very, very similar to the Bullfrog. In some ways, it's actually better than the Bullfrog, and we're going to talk about all that today. This is going to be very similar to yesterday's video about the MAC-10, only the Bullfrog is the third most picked weapon in Warzone right now, whereas the MAC-10 is the fifth most picked. So yesterday I did the MAC-10 versus the PPSH. I think the PPSH is better in a lot of ways, and very, very few people are using it. This is even more extreme. Even less people are using the AK-74U, and more people are using the Bullfrog. So we're going to go through, compare the two weapons. I'll show you my recommended builds, and we'll compare with those stats. And I'll try to convince you that the AK-74U is actually a very good gun, especially if you like the Bullfrog. So just talking about base stats first of all, you get the AK-74U up on top, and then the Bullfrog down the bottom. Damage profile wise, they're very similar. The drop off of the AK-74U is at 14 meters, whereas the Bullfrog's 13 meters. So you get an extra meter with the AK-74U. The other really important difference between the damage profile is the AK-74U has a really big neck multiplier, so it does a lot more to the neck than it does to the chest, whereas the Bullfrog has no neck multiplier at all. It does the same to the chest. Overall, they have similar fire rates. AK-74U is 700 RPM, Bullfrog 750, so you get like 8% faster fire rate with the Bullfrog, but not a whole lot of difference there. And you can see the damage values are pretty similar. AK-74U just hits a little bit harder, and that's because it shoots a little bit slower. So thinking along that train of thought, let's go look at the TTK charts. So again, this is the premium feature that's coming to TrueGameData, hopefully within the next week. We're really, really close. Everything's working. We've got all of the API integration for payments and everything completely finished at this point. So hopefully we'll be releasing this very soon once we get it fully tested and confirmed. But this is using a combination shot location, so 10% headshot, 5% neck shot, 35% chest shot, 15% stomach shot, and 35% extremity shot. I built an algorithm that will actually go in and find a real TTK that matches as close to those percentages as possible. So it's not just taking the TTK of each shot location and averaging those together at 10%, 5%, you know, every percentage that I've written there. It actually finds a real TTK. So the actual shot location percentages will not be exactly what you've selected, but the algorithm that I wrote will get as close to that as it can while still generating a real TTK with real shots to kill. So looking at that, these are really good shot percentages that I think are pretty realistic for an SMG. This is based off of Black Ops Cold War numbers because we actually have all the statistics for that from Black Ops Cold War, so I basically surveyed a bunch of people and got their numbers. I think these are pretty accurate for general SMG usage. So looking at this, the AK-74U is in orange and the Bullfrog is in magenta. You can see the AK-74U is about 40 milliseconds faster TTK using these shot location percentages. Because the bullet velocity is a little slower on the AK-74U because we're not using the task force barrel, I'll go over my recommended builds in a minute. But for now, you can see them right there, but I'll go over why I pick everything I picked there. If we turn off bullet travel time to target, you're going to see the AK-74U with these shot location percentages is basically 30 to 40 milliseconds faster TTK everywhere than the Bullfrog. So that's not insignificant. That's a pretty nice improvement there. A lot of that comes from the neck shot as well as extremities. Extremities are a lot better on the AK-74U as well. And then if we go look at damage per mag, the Bullfrog, like I said, we're going to use the 50 round default mag because that's a really nice perk to be able to get another attachment on there. So that's one of the big pluses of using the Bullfrog. So we're going to go with that 50 round default mag. The AK-74U is going to use the Spetsnaz 50 round drum just so we have enough damage per mag because the default mag is only 30 on the AK-74U, so we do need to use that attachment to get more bullets. With the 50 round drum, you're going to see the AK-74U has pretty significantly more damage per mag at all ranges than the Bullfrog with the 50 round drum, or with the 50 round default mag, so 1722 versus 1555. Again, this is using those shot location percentages to find the actual total damage that can be output with that number of bullets with these percentages of hit locations. Weighted DPS, again, this is a little closer. This is only 10 DPS more for the AK-74U in the first range, but it's a little more DPS extra in the second range. And you can see the Bullfrog again, because the Bullfrog has maybe a little bit more controllable recoil. We'll go over recoil as well, just like I did in the MAC-10 video. We can put the task force barrel on there and it's still accurate, whereas we don't have that extra slot to use on the AK-74U, and I don't really want to make the AK-74U recoil worse, but because the 74U has longer default damage range, we don't really need the task force. The Bullfrog only gets 16.5, whereas the AK-74U gets 15.4. So it's an extra 1 meter for the Bullfrog. Everywhere else, except that 1 meter gap, the AK-74U is going to kill faster. All right, now let's go through these summary stats, and let's talk about the builds first, I guess, just so you see how I built these guns. Like I said, with the Bullfrog, really nice that you don't need a magazine and you don't need an optic, so that gives you 2 attachments over a lot of the other guns. So we've got Groove Suppressor, Task Force Barrel, KGB Skeletal Stock, Tiger Team Spotlight, and Patrol Grip. Again, I love Patrol Grip. You're spending most of your time sprinting. I'm going to reiterate this for a long time, even though I've talked about it in the last few videos. I think 95% of your time with the gun is spent sprinting. When you jump around a corner or something, you're always sprinting into that jump. So the combination of KGB Skeletal Stock and Patrol Grip is super, super powerful because it gives you great movement speed on top of great sprint to fire times. So you're sprinting, you jump, and you can fire right away because of the Skeletal Stock. So the combination of those 2 attachments is excellent. So with this, we get really good movement speed, really good ADS movement speed, great sprint to fire times. The Task Force and Groove Suppressor, we get good bullet velocity and damage range on the Bullfrog. As for the AK-74U, we do need that magazine, so basically I drop the Task Force barrel to get the magazine, and what that does is doesn't give you quite as much damage range, but this, like I said, the 74U has more damage range to start with, so you don't necessarily need that. It also gives you more damage per mag than the Bullfrog, slows down ADS a little bit, but the rest of the build's exactly the same, just Groove Suppressor, KGB Skeletal Stock, Tiger Team, and Patrol Grip. So looking at the actual stats, again, this is the premium version of the website, which is not live yet, so some of these stats are not showing correctly, but I will just tell you about those as we go through. So fire rate, again, same here, where it's about 50 RPM faster on the Bullfrog. ADS times are calculating correct and more accurately than the current site, so I've updated the algorithm that generates the non-linear ADS times, and it's more accurate now once we release this than it's ever been. So it should be in a really good spot once we release that, but these are more accurate, like I said. So you get about 35 milliseconds worse ADS on the AK-74U, and this is pretty slow, but it's not that bad. It doesn't feel bad at all. I would say it is noticeable over the Bullfrog in terms of ADS time, but not really not that big of a deal. Sprint to fire times, again, are not calculating correctly right now, but they're going to be basically identical between the 2 guns because they both are SMGs and they both have the KGB Skeletal Stock, so there's no difference there. Movement speed, AK-74U actually edges out the Bullfrog by a little bit, not much at all. ADS movement speed, AK-74U again edges out the Bullfrog by a little bit. Recoil we can ignore. Bullet velocity, because the Bullfrog has Task Force barrel, it's going to have better bullet velocity. Reload times are about the same. There's really no big difference there that I've noticed in using them. It says the AK-74U is a little bit slower, but in practice that's not something that I ever really notice. Mag size is exactly the same once I have the 50 round on the 74U. And then sprint speeds are going to be basically identical. The only place the Bullfrog in mobility is going to win is the strafe speed, and that is because it has a Task Force barrel, which increases your strafe speed by like 3% or something like that. So overall, looking at all these stats, I don't understand why the Bullfrog is so popular and the AK-74U is not, because in almost every case the AK-74U wins except ADS time and strafe speed. So one of the things that could lead to that is the intangible stats, so accuracy. So we're going to go look at the recoil of these 2 guns and compare those, and you're going to see the same story there again when we get into that. Alright, so we're about to test the recoil between the Bullfrog and the 74U, and again, these are the exact same builds as I've been going over. So we got the Bullfrog here, let's go to 15 meters. Go prone, so we have limited aim sway. A lot of people think prone affects recoil. It doesn't affect recoil. All it does is make it so your gun doesn't sway, so it gives you more consistent recoil patterns. So we're going to do damage balance recoil plots again. I forgot, so I need to get these the same ammo. So the Bullfrog hits a little bit less hard than the AK, and the AK shoots a little bit slower. So basically we're going to do the total recoil plot's going to have the same damage between the 2 guns. So that's 19 bullets on the AK-74U and 20 on the Bullfrog, and I'm doing that again because I feel like the first 20 shots are the most important of a gun for sure. So let's try this out. So we're going to go 15 meters. This is the Bullfrog. Went a little bit off, but you can see basically where it ended up. We'll switch over to the AK now and do this. Same spot, not touching the mouse at all. Literally lifted the mouse off the ground. And you can see that with the damage balanced recoil plots, the Bullfrog ended up all the way up here, and the 74U is all the way down here. So in the first half the mag or so, almost half the mag, you get about half the actual recoil with the AK-74U for the same damage output, which is super nice. I mean, that's a really big benefit to the AK-74U. So even the recoil on the 74U is better than the Bullfrog. So all these things added up, and I really think the 74U is mostly just a better gun. But let's do a little visual recoil comparison here. So I've got the Bullfrog reloaded. We're gonna do my sign test where I shoot at this sign over there. Bullfrog, it has quite a bit of recoil. Like that's pretty hard for me to control, but very little visual recoil. 74U feels so much easier to control, and I'd say the visual recoil is about the same. Overall, a comment on iron sights. I don't really like the Bullfrog irons. I never have. It's just personal preference, so I know a lot of people like them. But the back sight posts on the left and right, like, just cover up so much of my view. I don't like that at all. Whereas the 74U has a very narrow back sight post. The one thing is that Tiger Team does get in the way. So if you want to remove the Tiger Team, I would say probably use a Serpent Wrap. So basically that's going to give you slower movement speeds but much better ADS times. That'll be a really, really big benefit in terms of ADS and make it ADS faster than the Bullfrog. But again, it'll move slower than the Bullfrog if you do that. But let's take a look at what that actually looks like so you can see how much better the sight picture is. So if we take Tiger Team off, and then I'll spawn back in and show you guys what this looks like. Alright, so we spawned back in now with the AK-74 swapped to the Serpent Grip on the 74U instead of the Tiger Team Spotlight. So now you can see this has fantastic iron sights. I mean, those are great. Super, super clear. It's really thin and narrow all the way down, so you can see people left and right. Compared to the Bullfrog, I dramatically prefer the 74U irons. One thing I do want to mention, the Task Force barrel and the VDV reinforced, when you have a grease suppressor on your gun, will change the way the gun looks. So I'll show you guys that now real quick. I got to respawn to do it. So this is what the irons look like just normally without the Task Force plus GRU or the VDV reinforced plus GRU. Good iron sights, but not amazing. I mean, they're pretty good. They're better than the Bullfrog in my opinion. And if you inspect the gun, you can see it just looks normal. Just looks like the normal barrel with the monolithic attached. Alright, I've spawned back in now with the Task Force barrel attached as well as the GRU suppressor, and you can see right off the bat the whole barrel looks completely different. You get different iron sights, and they're actually better. So the irons with this, I would say, are better. They don't wrap around the top as much. But there is a problem with them. So I'm going to aim right at this red dot with the hipfire dot. So you can see the hipfire dot's right in the center there. If I ADS, you're going to see that this goes above that. So if I go to the left or right a little bit, the hipfire dot's right on the red dot. I ADS, and my pin is actually above that. So the bullets actually fire below where they're supposed to when you use this GRU suppressor plus Task Force barrel. That does not happen when you don't do that. So right now, I would not recommend using GRU suppressor and Task Force at the same time, or GRU suppressor and VDV reinforce at the same time, because you get that same reticle issue there with the front iron post being in the wrong spot. Quick comparison here, you can see I'm going to do the same thing with the Bullfrog. I'll put the hipfire dot right on that, and you're going to see the sight pin is actually a little bit below. It's basically on it, but a little bit below, which is actually ideal because that way it's not getting in the way of what you're looking at when you shoot. So again, that does not happen with the AK-74U unless you use those combos of attachments that give you that unique looking barrel. And you can see it when you're actually building the gun too, so it's visually there on this page. So you can see GRU suppressor plus Task Force gives you that weird look. If I take GRU suppressor off, it's not going to look like that anymore. It just completely changes the whole front end of the gun. Same with VDV reinforced. It has the same look here, so you can see it has that same different barrel. I don't believe any of the other ones do. Okay, Liberator does. So Liberator also gives the same problem with those the front sight pin. Rifle does not. Cavalry Lancer, no one's going to use that anyway. And Extended does as well. So basically, you can only really use the rifled barrel or Cavalry Lancer barrel, but no one's going to use Cavalry. So really, I just wouldn't use a barrel on this gun. And it has so much damage range to start with, it doesn't really need a barrel, so that's okay. Just don't use a barrel. But my favorite builds for sure would be this. This is what I talked about before. This is fantastic mobility, good ADS time, good damage per mag, good ADS movement speed, everything. But again, that flashlight gets in the way of your ADS, which is not a huge deal. But if it does bother you, you can take that off. And then I would put on either a Serpent Grip or a Speed Tape if you don't want to hurt your sprint to fire times. Basically, you have the best ADS times with the Serpent Grip, but it hurts your sprint to fire. But with the Speed Tape, it just helps your ADS times. It's not quite as much as the Serpent Grip, but it doesn't kill your sprint to fire time. So kind of a trade-off there. But either way, and you don't have to build it like this. Just whatever your Bullfrog build is, take off one of the attachments and replace it with the Spetsnaz 50-round drum on the AK-74U and try that. Just try your exact same Bullfrog build, take off the least important attachment on your Bullfrog, and just copy and paste that onto here, plus the 50 round magazine, and try it out. Once you get used to the recoil going up to the right instead of up to the left, I think you're going to find that you might actually like this gun a lot more. Alright everybody, well that covers everything I wanted to talk about in this video. Just try it out. I don't know why it gets such a bad rap. Maybe it's because people use that task force and it screws up those iron sights and they don't realize that, and the gun just feels weird to them. So try it without the task force barrel. Pretty much all the Cold War SMGs, the top builds, everybody uses task force on them, so I think that's probably the problem. So just try it out without the task force, see if you like it. I think it's a great gun. I think it's better than the Bullfrog overall, and I think most people should be trying it out instead of the Bullfrog. So just want to make this video, show it off to you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like the content, if you're new here, drop a sub, come back, see more content. If you've been here before and you're already subscribed, be sure you turn those notifications on. I've never mentioned that before, but I'm going to start talking about it because my notification percentages are really low compared to the rest of YouTube. But I hope you guys have a fantastic day. We'll hopefully get these premium features out for you guys very soon. Working insanely hard right now on the website and the YouTube channel and everything. So yeah, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.